its competitors. They have phones, yes, but also everything from a nose hair trimmer to an electric unicycle to a mattress to a robot vacuum cleaner, which is funnily enough the one that I use. And Xiaomi is not afraid to test the limits. They made the Mi Mix Alpha with its wraparound display. They made a triple folding phone, even though it never released. They made a transparent TV, which still makes no sense to me, given that the only thing it's going to show is your cables going into your walls. But I like the experimentation. Okay, when you think of big tech companies, there's a pretty good chance that you think of Apple's colossal glass headquarters, or Huawei's sprawling European city-like workplace. But it's actually really hard to find almost anything about Xiaomi's HQ. They call it the Technology Park, and from the bits that I have managed to piece together, it does look fascinating. There are slides to go downstairs, there are people carting around on Xiaomi-built products. It's just that, as far as the English-speaking world is concerned, it barely exists. And this is also where their labs are. They have more than 90 rooms here, each built to make sure that their smartphones are all calibrated right, that the cameras look good, that the audio sounds correct. They've even got a room here that can simulate every weather condition to make sure that the screens remain pleasant to look at in them. But probably the coolest part of this HQ is that Xiaomi has a fake home here. And the idea is that this is the kind of home that they're targeting their Mi devices at. And so by having one here in their complex, it means they can not just use it to test things they're building, to make sure they work in that home environment, but this also serves as a way to inspire the next gadgets that they decide these homes can benefit from. Now, just before my top three, you might be wondering, Xiaomi's going global, Steve Wozniak himself recommended them, they're kind of like Apple, but cheaper. Why don't they have a presence in the United States? Well, there's three prevailing theories. One, that they're waiting for US-China relationships to improve before giving it a proper shot. Two, that they'd kind of have to shift their entire business model of selling the phones on their own to actually working with carriers to try and sell contracts, because that's how everyone in the US buys phones. But also three, that in the US, patents are enforced strictly. And so it is also possible that Xiaomi's just hesitant because they don't want to get sued. Okay, number three, Xiaomi has an official dog. She was actually a stray who just so happened to end up outside their engineering headquarters as it was being built, so they took her in. She was apparently in pretty bad shape, so they got her treated, they cleaned her up, and then actually gave her a company badge. Until one of the employees decided to just look after her full-time. Two, Xiaomi are terrible at naming their products. Tech Altar did a really good video about this, but fundamentally, they've created a whole lot of brands. You've got Mi, you've got Redmi, you've got Mi Note, etc. And it really feels like when they launch a new phone, they just pick a random combination of one of these, one number, which half the time doesn't even match with the other phones of the series, and then one of about 30 different ways of saying that it's either a light or a pro version. And it's just a mess. Like, the Redmi Note 9S is a higher-end version of the Redmi Note 9. So, oh, right, S must mean higher end. No, because the Redmi 3S is a light version of a Redmi 3. They're almost as bad at naming things as Elon Musk. Then again, am I really want to talk about naming? I spelled my own username wrong, right? Or did I? I feel like this is going to be a 10 million subscriber special. Why I actually called the channel Mr. Who's the Boss. This is going to be a 10 name wrong, right? Right? Or did I? I feel like this is going to be a 10 million subscriber special. Why I actually called the channel Mr. Who's the Boss. And number one, to try and improve their appearance globally, Xiaomi shortened their website URL from xiaomi.com to mi.com. But that's not the surprising bit. See, the way it works with website domain names is that, just like for custom number plates, the more memorable and the shorter they are, the more valuable they are. And so for this incredibly simple domain name swap, Xiaomi paid $3.6 million US. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing. We're going to try and hit that 10 million mark by the end of this year. And with that being said, my name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one. Can you trust a YouTube reviewer? What's to stop us just taking money from companies to say nice things about them? It's a genuine concern that a lot of you have told me you have.
Прикинь, сколько людей там делали, ну ладно. Красиво же, правильно? Но это все, да, несерьезно, вот ты, да, ты пусть умирать будешь уже завтра, ну скоро. Ну ладно. Ну наоборот, так вот наоборот как раз, да. Удачно больше.
Can you trust a YouTube reviewer? What's to stop us just taking money from companies to say nice things about them? It's a genuine concern that a lot of you have told me you have. So this is how it works. Every YouTuber, providing they meet the minimum requirements, earns some money.
Ага, ты такой вообще уже, да, я просто понял. Вся и говорит так, да наоборот, это, да наоборот, блин. Эй!
Money from adverts. So every time you see those double unskippable ads, as annoying as I know they can be, that is you supporting that creator. But the problem with ad revenue is that the YouTuber is only getting paid according to A, how many views they get, B, how long each of those viewers is watching for, and C, what their audience's demographics are. But they have almost no control over those things. And to show you just how much variance this can mean, 1,000 views from the Maldives could pay a creator $15. 1,000 views from Jamaica, $0.03. 500 times less. That's the difference between the wage of the President of the United States and the wage of a 15-year-old kid who decides to do an hour of tutoring a week. And add to that, because a lot of these companies want to advertise around Christmas, Diwali, New Year, when customers are actually following through and buying things from those adverts, ad revenue for creators is good in those months. But literally the second that January rolls around, even if all your views, your watch times are all the same, you're earning half as much. So all I'm really trying to establish here is that most YouTubers, they need to make some sponsored content every now and again. They may have full-time employees with salaries. They may have rent or families they need to support. They may need to replace equipment or buy products to make the videos about. So they need some sort of income that they can at least control. Okay, with that out of the way then, given that you know a YouTuber is being sponsored for a certain video, can you trust the words that are coming out their mouth? Well, the way it works with paid content on YouTube is there's two types of sponsorships. You will either get companies who just want to be a part of an existing video that you were going to make anyways, to be mentioned for 30 to 60 seconds, or you will get companies who want their product to be the entire video. Like, you might remember that day when it felt like the entire tech community was testing Dyson vacuum cleaners. But broadly speaking, this is what a sponsor agreement looks like. The company will come to a creator with deliverables, what format of content they want. They'll give you talking points, key things they want you to highlight, a time frame, and how much they'd be willing to offer you for it. And the final thing with a paid video is that the brand gets to have a look at it before it goes live, just to make sure they're okay with it. So, with all that in mind, I'm not about to tell you that you can trust every single sponsored review you see, because clearly there is scope for a YouTuber who just wants money to the frame and how much they'd be willing. They'll give you talking points, key things they want you to highlight, deliverable. Speaking, this is what a sponsor agreement looks like. The company will come to a creator with deliverables, what format of content they want. They'll give you talking points, key things they want you to highlight, a time frame, and how content they want. They'll give you talking points. Key things they want you to highlight, a time frame, and how much they'd be willing to offer you for it. And the final thing with a paid video is that the brand gets to have a look at it before it goes live, just to make sure they're okay with it. So, with all that in mind, I'm not about to tell you that you can trust every single sponsored review you see, because clearly there is scope for a YouTuber who just wants money to say to the company, yes, doesn't matter what brand you are, doesn't matter what the product is, I will say exactly what you want me to say. This exists, but this is not me. So I just want to show you the extent that I go to make sure that when you're watching a video here, you're getting my thoughts, not a company's thoughts. So the first thing is that I will not take on a sponsorship if I don't think it's relevant. Look, this is a tech channel. You're interested in tech, maybe lifestyle, maybe health, but what I'm not going to do is start promoting credit cards or energy drinks or vapes. It doesn't matter how much I'm offered for it. The second thing is obviously the product itself. It's really dawned on me in the last few years that, not to blow my own trumpet, but if I recommend a product on this channel, there's a good chance that at least some of you are going to go through and buy it. I've met some of you at launch events, or just generally on the streets, and you told me, I'm using this phone because you recommended it. Or, I bought the Xeon Smooth X 2-axis stabilized gimbal because it was featured in that one episode of Smartphone Gadgets on the 27th of July 2020. Or that $1 tablet from Wish.com. Okay, fine, no one asked me about that, but you get the point. And so now, before any contracts are signed with any companies, I ask for the product. I've got an upcoming sponsored video for a really cool smartphone gadget, but instead of signing the agreement first, which is the typical way of working, I insisted that I have the gadget in hand, I've tested it myself, I've made sure it's good enough before going back to the company and saying, I love it, let's do this. And this is true for anything sponsored on this channel, whether it's a VPN service or a healthy meal alternative. I have tested it, and I've tasted it, and I genuinely am recommending it. It's very easy to look at a YouTuber making a sponsored video and to think, well, obviously they're just saying that because they're paid to. But if they're actually people you trust, then it's more likely that they've only taken on that sponsorship because they actually do like the product. For example, you might know that I do a lot of sponsorships with Surfshark VPN. That is not because they pay me the most. I've actually gone out of my way to earn less to make sure that I'm A, promoting something that I actually think is better value for you, and B, insisting that instead of doing the sponsored piece during the middle of the video, which would generate more income, I keep it right at the end, so that if you do decide that it's not interesting to you, it's not going to waste your time. And that brings me on to the next thing. Like I said, brands do have a say. For a sponsored video or a sponsored segment, they will give creators recommended talking points. But this is where the ball is in the YouTuber's court. Because, well, yes, you could just be like, sure, I'll take your money and say those things. That's not what you need to do. And that's not what I do. My response to these talking points is always, this is what I want to say, take it or leave it. Because, let's be honest, a sponsored video script, it should be the same as if you were making that video and you weren't being paid for it, right? Like, sure, it might mean you cover a product that you wouldn't have otherwise covered. Sure, it might mean you have a slightly different angle, a slightly different thing that you're looking at because it's sponsored. But it shouldn't change how you feel about it. I even had this one time, I was going to do a collaboration with a really big phone brand. I sent them my draft script, and there were just 2 sentences that we couldn't agree on. They wanted me to say them one way, and they wouldn't budge when I told them that that didn't quite capture how I actually felt about the device. And that was enough for me to say, fine, I'm not making this video with you. And then I proceeded to make the exact same video myself, without getting paid, just so I could say those 2 sentences the way that I wanted to say them. And I think most accountants would probably be screaming at me for that. And that brings me on to the money itself, because this is often the biggest criticism thrown around about YouTubers. Doing things for money is like the first thing you'll get labeled with if you make an unpopular opinion. But the truth of it is, I'm not a money-focused person. Like, I have every physical good I could possibly need, but even when I didn't, in every list of goals I ever made myself, for the channel, or even just me personally, money was never a factor. This is why I don't have a Patreon where you can donate to me. This is why I didn't set up YouTube channel memberships where you can pay monthly to support me, even though it would take like 10 minutes. This is why I don't have an OnlyFans account. Okay, there are other reasons for that. The point is, I want my content to be free. All of it. What do I want? The point is, OnlyFans account. Support me, even though it would take like 10 minutes. This is why I don't have an OnlyFans account.
Sure, OnlyFans. Ah,
Okay, there are other reasons for that. The point is, I want my content to be free. All of it. What do I want? I want to make videos where you guys watch for longer, because that's a sign to me that I'm providing enjoyment. I want to keep learning and improving, because those things are fun to me. It's why I spend so much of my effort trying to make this setup just more interesting and more fun, just keep it evolving. I want to hit 10 million subscribers so badly. These are things that I do find rewarding. And so, if I ever feel like money or sponsorships are going to compromise them, or compromise the trust, which is the reason you watch my videos in the first place, I'm not going to do them. That said, even though I try as hard as I can to make sure I do sponsorships in what I think is the right way, you still have a right to know when you're watching sponsored content. Now, because being an influencer is such a new field, the regulations are kind of evolving as we go, and I'm still learning them. But what I can tell you for 100% certain is that in the UK, where I'm from, even if I wanted to, I couldn't make a sponsored video and not tell you it's a sponsored video. And even if I went further and tried to find some sort of legal loophole, the brand that was doing the sponsoring would insist that I disclose it anyways, because they'd be in trouble too if I didn't. So for the last year, and going forward especially, I'm going to be as clear as I can possibly be. I will verbally tell you when a video is sponsored. It will be in the video description. And if the entire video is sponsored, you'll see this marker in the bottom corner. So if a video does not have those things, no payment has been made. Simple as that. And this brings me on to the other thing that I feel like I need to address. I never have, and I never will, make a sponsored review. The way I see it, a review is a very specific type of video where you expect the creator to have used a device for a period of time, and to be giving you their completely unfiltered, conclusive thoughts about whether or not you should buy it. It wouldn't feel right for that to be sponsored, even if I am saying what I think. Like, for last year's Mi 10T phone, Xiaomi did sponsor me to make some Twitter content. They wanted me to make a teaser about this new feature that was coming to it, and it was quite a fun and quirky thing, so I said yes. And as part of this, Xiaomi sent me this Mi 10T well before launch. So far before launch that if I wanted to, I could have made a full review and released it the second the phone actually got announced to the world. It could have been like the most in-depth video on the internet at the time. It could have done amazing. But I didn't. I just felt like because I'd been sponsored to make those Twitter teasers, even though they would have had nothing to do with any YouTube content I would have made, it still wouldn't feel quite right to make a full review of a phone that I was technically paid to promote. And on that note, I feel like there's a slight misconception that I need to address linked to this. Smartphone brands don't sponsor channels. I'm generalizing a little bit, but in the entire last 10 years that I've been making tech videos, I haven't had a single company like Xiaomi or Huawei or OnePlus saying, we want to sponsor you. It's always, we want to sponsor that one video. And so, just because a YouTuber makes a sponsor video for a brand, it doesn't make that brand a channel sponsor. Brands don't just silently pay YouTubers for each nice sentence they say about you. It's very much a black and white case of, this is a sponsor video, where the brand has approved it to go live, and this is not a sponsor video, where the brand has absolutely zero say at all in it. Okay, there is one thing though that I would say is a grey area, and it's something that was on my mind when I used to watch tech videos before I made them myself. Review samples. So it's probably not a surprise to you that sometimes I, and every other tech YouTuber, we get sent some of the devices that we review by the companies themselves. It's the only way we're able to drop videos of those devices the second they get announced to the world. But this creates an obvious question, because if YouTubers and creators and writers are relying on manufacturers to send them devices, then does that create an incentive for us to just say nice things about them, so that we can carry on getting those samples? Kind of yes. To be perfectly blunt with you, when I started getting samples, like 7 or so years ago, some part of me was nervous about criticizing that brand. As far as I'm aware, I did still say what I thought, but it's perfectly possible that somewhere subconsciously, my opinion was affected by the fact that 1, I didn't pay for the item, and 2, I was trying to build good brand relationships. But very soon, I started to see this a different way. I realized that there's like 100 tech channels out there. They're all bigger than me, they're all growing faster than me, we're all covering the same products. And so the only thing that I could offer was to be useful. Even if it means getting kicked off a company's list of reviewers, in my eyes, that's worth it if I'm kicked off because I feel like I'm telling the truth. Because long term, hopefully, the viewers, you guys, would realize that, and you would be happy to wait an extra 2 weeks or so for me to buy my own version of that device and review it myself. This whole idea of trying to be useful, this is why I spend so much of my time trying to make my videos concise. This is why I don't spend 40 seconds introducing the topic of the video when I think the title and thumbnail are enough for you to figure it out. It's the reason why I don't spend much time on relatively niche products, unless I think they have a really interesting story behind them. And most importantly, it's the reason why I try to make sure that I give you good information, at least according to my experiences and my preferences. Am I biased? Yes. I prefer products that are blue and white. As you can probably tell, I don't use wireless charging. I put more weight on battery life and cameras than most, because those things are important to me. Everybody has biases, but the crucial thing for me is that those biases are not affected by brand relationships. I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago I made a video titled, "Do Not Buy This Smartphone." That was using a review sample. They sent the phone, they even offered to send money with it, which I refused, and after testing it, it became very clear that it just wasn't worth it. So in no uncertain terms, that's what I said. If this company wants to send me their next phone for review, they're welcome to, but I don't think they will, and that's okay. Now, this doesn't, it won't, and after testing it, they sent the phone, they even offered to send, was using a review sample. They sent the phone, they even offered to send money with it, which I refused, and after testing it, it became very clear that it just wasn't worth it. So in no uncertain terms, that's what I said. If this company wants to send me their next phone for review, they're welcome to, but I don't think they will, and that's okay. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm just going to openly criticize everything smartphone companies do. For the most part, tech is good now. But it does mean that if Apple and Samsung are going to be disingenuous about eco-friendly packaging, I'm going to say it. If some Xiaomi products look like carbon copies of Apple ones, I'm going to say it. And if OnePlus truly screws up with a feature on its phone, I'm going to say it. And so far at least, no major brand has had a problem with that. Don't get me wrong, I have had smaller companies saying, "How could you say that about our device?" Or, "We're going to sue you because you damaged our sales." But for the most part, the big companies, they get it. Reviewers are going to review. I've had times when I completely tore a brand to shreds in a video, only for them to then email me later that evening and say, "That was really useful feedback." I made a video about Xiaomi recently, where I openly criticized their terrible product naming schemes and their alarming similarities to iPhones, but they actually went as far as to share that video on their official main Xiaomi Twitter account. Companies don't mind authentic content. And so the point is that ever since I got serious about reviewing, I have not worried at all about offending brands. The final thing that I want to quickly address is that I hear a lot of people say that I've got a ghostwriter, someone who writes my scripts for me, and then I just take that, come on camera, and perform. This is not how we do things. Like, we try to make the videos fun, but I'm very aware that the primary purpose of them is to inform. So every rating, every recommendation, every word on the script is from me. I spend like 60% of my time scripting. Okay, if I had to leave you with one takeaway from this video, it's that instead of deciding what to trust, decide who to trust. I think that if you trust a creator, then you can trust that even with their sponsored content, they'll A, only be doing it if they believe in that product, B, only agreeing to it if they can say what they want to, and C, they'll make it very clear when they are being sponsored. Because even though you do trust them, it's good to know the process that's gone behind that video. Yes, I realize I've spent the last 10 minutes reviewing myself, but I hope this was useful. I'm going to be working with some companies in March on some sponsored content, and I hope you find it enjoyable and informative to watch. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Что, ну, да, ну не умеешь войти. Вот напиши себе что-то. Ну, наоборот, только ты, да. А, ну вот наоборот, ну да, да. Да, да, да. Ха, наоборот. Вот это и есть на самом деле. А, ну да, да. Не, ну я говорю, так это что, мало что? А, но все равно никто меня не смотрит, типа, про тебя говорит, это. Все равно никто не смотрит же, просто уже все, да, понимаешь. Да, ну да. Кстати, интересно, да, даже. Ну да, да. Ну да. Не, я против ничего не имею, просто я не музыкант же. Да. Надо там, ну вот это он имеет, да, да, да. А, это я не умею так. Оно так не работает, оно так. А, сюмбней вот это. Сюмбней, да. Зачем это все так вот? Зачем это? Что это значит? Тут приставка просто вот это он имел в виду, да. Да. Не знаю просто. Ну вот и так это и говорил, да, да. Писали, да, да. Ладно, ладно, понял. Народ. Да, почти. Да наоборот, да, да. Да издевается, что ли? Да наоборот. Да нет, наоборот, да. Жорки. Понял. Ну, что дальше?